Alright, so we've been working our butts off today. We've got the site cleared now, we've got our benches built, and because we brought the earth mover all the way here, we're going to do a couple of test pits. I've got about 3 ponds that I'm interested in putting in the next couple of years, and because I don't know what the subsoils are here yet, we're going to go and dig test pits in those 3 locations. I'm going to take samples in these bags and then send them off to a lab to do a soil analysis. Now you can do a jar test, but this will give us a really accurate test with regards to the amount of sand, silt, and clay. To dig a pond, you want at least 50% clay to get a good seal on the diaphragm. And so if we don't have 50% and we still want to put a pond there, we may end up having to use a geotextile liner. So we'll go up there, we'll start digging a pit. It's really important that when you're digging that pit, that it's a safe pit, that it's not going to collapse in on you when you're down there grabbing your soil sample. And if you're hiring a good excavator, then they'll know what that means. If you're doing it yourself, basically you need to dig a big enough pit that it's safe and that if the soil subsides, it's not going to collapse in around you. So let's go take a look at these pits and find out what we have for soil. Behind me is a potential pond location. I suspect there's lots of sand in here, so we're gonna open it up and see if that's actually true. Okay, so the first thing that we just did was we stripped off the topsoil so that we can save it. And now we're going to dig down 6 to 10 feet and see what we see. It's already looking not very good. Looks like pretty pure silty sand to me. But that might change. That's why we're going to expose it and see what's in there. Okay, so that's pretty much pure sand. I don't even need to send this to the lab, but we will anyways, just to see what's there. Alright, so we learned a few things in that pit. Number one, that I can tell without even getting a soil sample that it's pretty sandy. Number two, that it's hard digging actually, and we actually started to hit some sandstone. So even if we wanted to line this with a bentonite liner, the cost to excavate this hole would be quite high, just because of how hard the material is. And so this dam would probably be not very economic. One of the sentiments that we get a lot from folks that are designing a permaculture property is how overwhelming it is. And the reason it's overwhelming is because when you get to a property like this, 160 acres or larger or smaller, even 5 acres, there seems to be this endless opportunity of things that you can do on the property. But permaculture design is all about creating Venn diagrams, and part of creating a Venn diagram is differentiating what can be done versus what can't be done. And so that allows us to constrain the options, and once you constrain the options, then that opportunity kind of disappears. And you start stripping away all the stuff that you thought was possible as you start doing tests like this. And so even though I probably spent 30 or 40 bucks getting that hole dug, I didn't spend 10 or 15 or $20,000 trying to force function a dam here to store water. So I very likely will not be putting a pond in this location, just given the fact that it will not hold any water. And that the excavation is going to be so incredibly hard because the ground is so hard. I'm better off to harvest water on this field just by enhancing the topsoil and using the tanks that I have on the top of the property as my gravity water system. This would have been a wonderful pond location from the overall operation of the property, but it's not a good fit based upon what we just found tonight. So 30 minutes, just eliminated that option. One less thing for me to think about. Now we're going to move to the next site and see if the soils change, and then we're going to go to the third site and see if they change again. And we've got 3 different bags, so we'll be able to compare how the subsoils shift as we move through the property. I'm really hoping the last site is going to have some clay, because I really want to dig a pond. But I won't force function it if it's not the right fit.
No, it's solid sandstone.
So this soil is pretty similar to the stuff on the top. This location is what I'm thinking, or where I'm thinking of putting in a duckweed pond, so pretty shallow. So even though there's sandstone down there and it's pretty sandy soil, this would be a candidate for geotextile liner if I was going to do that. It would be relatively small and relatively shallow, so the cost would be quite approachable. But yeah, same sort of situation, sand and sandstone. All right, so we just dug this hole and it was in the keyway of one of the biggest ponds that we've got right close to our house. And there's some pretty large amounts of clay in the surface, which is interesting. But then as we got down, we kind of got into some shale and sand and silt. So I'm gonna actually do 2 samples here to see what we find. It's always good to talk to the earth mover because, I mean, they're looking into the ground all the time. They've got a lot more experience than you'll ever have, or than I will ever have. Especially if he's a local, he's going to have seen a lot of different holes essentially around the countryside, and they'll know kind of what works and what doesn't. So Alex here thinks that this would actually hold water. We'll see what the soil samples say, and it may be worth an experiment. It's definitely a very low risk pond opportunity. Other than the financial capital, there's no real risk of causing much damage downstream should this dam actually go. Okay, so that's it for tonight. Hopefully you found that interesting. It's really important to do due diligence when you're trying to figure out water. In permaculture, it's water, access, and structures. So we're trying to figure out our water systems right now. That will ensure that we've got long-term fertility and stability on the landscape, no matter what we want to do. Okay guys, see you in the next video.